We want to welcome back to the table Brad Sherman, Congressman from California, Democrat, member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, as well as Financial Services Subcommittee on Capital Markets, the top Democrat for that subcommittee. Let's begin with foreign affairs. Yesterday, another state visit with this Biden administration, this time for India's prime minister. USA Today headline, front page, Biden courts India's right-wing PM Modi. Would you describe him as right-wing?
Well, as a matter of domestic politics, he's to the right of the center in India. And look, we deal with governments all the time. Sometimes somebody on the right gets elected, somebody on the left. And in terms of domestic politics, there are a lot of policies in the Indian government on the right wing that would be considered, that my Republican colleagues would call socialist. So he may be right wing in the context of Indian politics.
Would you call him a Democratic president?
He was duly elected. I don't, he has been, I guess, tougher with some of the religious and ethnic minorities, particularly religious minorities in India, than I would recommend. But I'm not running for Prime Minister of India.
Was he deserving of a state dinner?
I think so.
Why?
If we just have state dinners for people where we agree with everything they do, everybody in the White House would go hungry. The fact is, this is a major leader. This is now the largest by population country in the world. It is a bulwark against China. It is a country that we have very quickly increasing trade with. And Modi has lifted people out of poverty in India with some successful economic policies that he may have lifted more people out of poverty in the last 10 years than anyone else.
What did you hear from him yesterday when he addressed a joint meeting of Congress?
Well, one line stuck with me. He described India as a country with 22 official languages, thousands of dialects, and then says they speak with one voice. Well, every country aspires to speak with one voice. But I thought that was a good turn of phrase. He never mentioned the word China in the speech, but parts of it were about China.
Should he have?
He's got to decide diplomatically exactly how frank to be. I think that India stands to benefit from what we now have as a friend shoring. I prefer to onshore our manufacturing, but some will be done abroad. And it makes a lot more sense to source products in India rather than in China, because it's not inconceivable that all trade with China would be cut off by the end of the year if they choose to invade Taiwan. So I'm very involved in economic affairs and oversee from the Democratic side capital markets and Wall Street. And I think companies are massively underestimating the risks of depending on China.
What should he have said, or what would the United States like India to do on China?
Well, they're participating in the Quad, and Modi has mentioned that. I would prefer, I guess it's more on Russia that we would prefer some changes. He has been a bit vague on Ukraine and continues to source weapons from Russia. Now, the sourcing weapons from Russia is understandable because he inherited a military that was locked in to those weapon systems, and he's moving away from that. But he's been willing to buy Russian oil at a discount. Of course, he's running a poor country, and the oil is sold at a discount. And but his condemnation of the invasion of Ukraine has been soft.
When it comes to China, President Biden the other day called their leader a dictator. Was that a mistake?
If she doesn't want to be called a dictator, he ought to allow free press, free elections. There's less democracy in China than there is in Russia. On a short-term basis, it's always easier to not speak the truth and to coddle dictators. But now and then you have to speak truth, even to power.
They reacted, China, calling it an open political provocation. Why send Secretary of State Blinken there and then only a few days later call him a dictator.
I don't think we told Blinken to go to China and lie, or to fail to speak the truth, or to kiss anything that shouldn't be kissed. And you can negotiate with dictators. That doesn't mean you don't have to mention from time to time that they are dictators. If we are so weak that we can't speak the truth, that's bad. And if we are so weak that we're afraid to talk, that's bad.
Turning to domestic issues and your perch on the subcommittee for capital markets, what is going on with banks, the recent bank failures that we've seen? You've introduced legislation. What will it do?
Well, I've introduced many pieces of legislation, but the big problem we have is banks have lost money when they invest in long-term debt instruments, and they don't want to recognize those losses. And the regulators don't want to take those losses into account into determining whether the bank is solvent. Their argument is that depositors, the banks, with rising interest rate, the banks benefit more if you leave money in your checking account or any other non-interest bearing or low interest bearing account. And you were inclined to do that a few years ago because, wow, you could earn 0.25% if you did something else. You might as well leave it in your checking account. Now people realize that they can earn 4 and 5% on their money. And so the idea that people will, over the long term, subsidize banks by leaving lots of money in their accounts at low rates of interest, banks will do very well if people choose to subsidize them. But so few of my constituents are looking to subsidize their banks.
Where do you come down on cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency is bad from every perspective. It's bad from the environment. It's bad from an investor protection standpoint, and it aspires to weaken the United States. And every American, if you listen to what the crypto billionaire bros say, their goal is to facilitate transactions that the United States would ban, and to partially replace the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency. And so but I think the ultimate, well, cryptocurrency says it all in the name. What does it mean? Cryptocurrency, hidden money. Who needs that? We know who needs that.
What is happening with banks and cryptocurrency? Do you have any concerns there?
So far, I haven't seen any bank invest in cryptocurrency. Obviously, the cryptocurrency industry has banking accounts because cryptocurrency isn't a currency. So when they need currency, they need to have dollars in a bank. But certainly, financial institutions are getting into the crypto business. And all the questioning seems to be, oh, is this good? Can I make money at it? And very little of the attention is building a hidden money system, one that's going to promote tax evasion, sanctions evasion, human trafficking. And oh, by the way, just Bitcoin mining produces more carbon than 5 American states.
Let's get to calls. Steve's been waiting in Freeland, Maryland. Democratic caller. You're up first, Steve.
Mr. Sherman, I couldn't agree more with you about the Bitcoin. It's funny, though, we opened up an exchange on the United States stock market for Bitcoin currency. My concern, though, Mr. Sherman, is more about the legislative branch in the United States that has bankrupted the greatest nation in the world. We have China literally now in our backyard. They're all over the mining and doing everything else right in our Western Hemisphere. That would be all of Latin America. I don't understand what it's like to go to work every day in the most dysfunctional branch of government, and that would be the legislative branch. When it comes to dysfunction, if we wanted to look that up in the dictionary, I think we would have a great look. I'm really worried for our country. I have my first grandchild. I'm 60 years old, a survivor of bone cancer, and I'm just amazed when I say amazed, I mean amazed at. And when I saw the hearing yesterday of the crookedness that takes place in the legislative branch on both sides of where we are in this country, it truly is scary. You have a wonderful day, sir.
Steve, what hearing were you referring to?
That was the hearing of yesterday's hearing. I watched it. It was from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It was the testimony of Mr. Durham and the FBI. You know, I felt bad for Mr. Durham. It's hard to prosecute an institution, and I think that's really what he was left up with trying to do, which was correct the FBI. Prosecuting any institution in the United States of America is next to impossible because it's backed by the strength and the good backing and faith of the federal government.
Okay. Congressman.
You've covered a lot of ground there. First, as to serving in a Congress that is certainly more divided than it's been in many decades, I just say in the good times it's fun, and in the bad times it's important. As to China, the big mistake we made was in the year 2000 when we granted most favored nation status to China. Our economic theories at the time told us that you can't have a free and unmanaged trade with another country that manages its trade and manages its economy, and that if you do, you may have a spectacularly large trade deficit, and now we do. So we need to change our trade relationship with China. It is the most lopsided trade relationship in the history of mammalian life, and the way to do that is tariffs on Chinese goods across the board. And while Trump talked about doing that, we did very little. And then finally, as to which branch is more corrupt, I'll just say that members of Congress report any gift or free trip if it's worth more than $49. Members of the Supreme Court live like billionaires on their government salaries because, well, they're unlimited.
Maryland, St. Louis, Missouri, and Independent.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say I think a woman has the right to decide what to do with her body. If she wants an abortion, she should have the right to have it. We don't interfere with men's rights or other people's rights, so we should have our rights too.
Okay. One day away from the Dobbs decision, Congressman.
The Dobbs decision was a very bad decision, and we need to restore Roe v. Wade, either legislatively or through the Supreme Court. I'm fortunate to come from California, where that's locked into our state constitution.
Albany, Georgia. Kevin, Democratic caller.
Yes. Let me turn it down.
Go ahead, Kevin. What'd you say?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. I'm a gay man, and the last guest on there wants to take away my rights. And I want the congressman from California to do everything he can to fight him and just to stop him from taking away my right to marry my boyfriend, because we're going to plan a wedding someday. So, and just do everything. Just the congressman can do everything he can to stop him and the MAGA Republicans. And I'm with Joe Biden all the way, and I'm going to vote for him in 2024.
Congressman.
Thank you. I've been a member of the LGBTQ plus caucus for, I think, 2 decades, and we're doing what we can to, certainly on the Democratic Party, to fight for the rights of that community, both here in the United States and internationally.
Robert, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Independent.
Good morning, Greta. I wanted to ask Representative Sherman, is there any support in Congress for a nationwide ban on gay conversion therapy? Thank you.
I'm sure there's some support in Congress for every different possible position on that issue, but I don't see us actually adopting any legislation on it.
Patty's in Atlantic City, New Jersey, Independent. Hi, Patty.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to say thank you to the congressman for coming on the show. I think it's very important that congresspeople come on the show so that, us citizens can say our say. Anyway, it's very hard to speak to somebody in Congress. When you call, they don't call back. So my question for you, Congressman, is if you could send a message back to the Congress that what's going on right now with all these investigations and so forth is very disturbing to citizens. We just want you to get things done, and also that women are going to rise up and that abortion is the biggest thing of our time.
Patty, which investigations were you referring to?
Actually, well, I watch them all. I watch C-SPAN all the time. I was referring to the Hunter Biden investigations and the frivolous things that are going on now with Marjorie Taylor Greene, bringing impeachment and so forth. It's very disturbing.
Okay. Your reaction, Congressman.
Even if you watch C-SPAN, you're not seeing all of Congress. You got to watch C-SPAN 2. Now, you don't want to see the Senate. But C-SPAN 3 and the hearings, and then you can go online. Even if a dozen of my colleagues are wasting their time, there may be hundreds meeting on a variety of different issues that, probably don't even make C-SPAN 3. You can't cover all the hearings. Congress is 435 individuals, and the press will show you the 10 that are doing the most extreme thing. That doesn't mean that the other 400 plus aren't working to try to make the country better. Also, there is a lot of discussion about getting things done. Getting things done means erasing one law and replacing it with another. And sometimes, most of the proposals for doing that are actually bad proposals. We introduce thousands of bills. Thank God we don't pass most of them. So, yes, we do need to get things done, but sometimes the best outcome is to have a hearing, look at a proposal, and decide that the current statute is better than the proposal.
Front page of the Washington Times is a story in several papers this morning. Feds favored Hunter Biden in tax probe. This according to an IRS whistleblower who gave closed-door testimony. It was released by the Republicans on the Ways and Means Committee yesterday. Quote, I am alleging with evidence that DOJ provided preferential treatment, slow-walked the investigation, did nothing to avoid obvious conflicts of interest in this investigation. This according to the whistleblower. Your reaction?
Well, I think that Hunter Biden is paying a price for his non-compliance with our tax laws. His name is there in the newspaper, and of course, he's subject to a plea bargain. I would say in general, the consequences for cheating on taxes, and I'm an old CPA and tax lawyer, those consequences are softer than they should be. I don't think you change that policy just because someone is the son of the president, but it's hard to name anyone who's actually done jail time for cheating on their taxes.
If the investigation into him, though, if he was given preferential treatment or it was slow walk, there was bias, should that be further investigated because of this whistleblower's claims?
We should investigate everything, but it wouldn't surprise me if this tax matter went more slowly than it would for Tom, Dick, Harry, or Mary. Bureaucrats know if you're just auditing someone in my California district, you can just do your job. This is the son of the president. You might take a deep breath. You might dot some I's and cross some T's. It might take you a little longer. And I'm sure that the resources spent on this investigation were greater because they were dealing with something that was so sensitive.
Churchill, Tennessee. Katie, Independent, you're next. Katie, good morning to you in Churchill, Tennessee. Independent caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just have a comment on this Dobbs deal. I am pro-choice. I'm a grandmother. I'm pro-choice, but it's my body, and I feel like I should be able to do whatever I want with it. And all these judges that has voted against this, I think they should be castrated, and that way we wouldn't have to worry about so many babies in this world. And you all have a great day.
I'm pro-choice, but I can't endorse her policy.
Deborah, Keller, Texas, Democratic caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have a question. The baby that was raped and became pregnant, it's my understanding that the rapist was incarcerated, and she went to another state to have an abortion. Had she not had an abortion and had given birth, whose baby would that have been?
Well, are you following, Congressman?
Well, I know that there was a girl in a Midwestern state, it might have been Indiana, who was 10 or I believe 11 years old, who obviously no sex at that age is consensual, and she had to go across the state boundary to get an abortion. I'm not at all surprised that the perpetrator might be incarcerated. As to whose baby it is, there are babies born as a result of rape, incest. There are fathers in jail, and you are the baby. You know, a baby is the child of the parents, no matter what the circumstances, if the baby is born. And in this case, there was an abortion, and one can certainly understand why the parents of a 10 or 11-year-old girl would think that was the right thing to do.
Nashville, Tennessee. Ed's a Democrat there. Ed, you're talking with Congressman Brad Sherman, Democrat of California. Go ahead.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning? Thank you for taking my call. Mm-hmm. And anyhow, I'm on a fence post. I see both sides a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And I think women should be able to do what they want with their body if that's what they need, regardless of being raped or anything else. That's their body, and that's what should be done. There's so many things going on today that I think both parties in Washington, D.C. kind of working together most of the time, especially on these businesses. Like China has taken over Detroit. They bought a lot of stuff, and now they're buying more farmland. Here in Tennessee, we got foreign countries coming over here, and we even give them grants to start a new business. How is that helping the American people? That's what I understand. There's so many people that are just on minimum wage, can't hardly make a living, and you got these guys making billions of dollars in these companies. And, of course, I guess they're considered a human. Anyhow, that's your challenge for today. So
all right.
Just have a great day.
All right, Ed. Congressman.
Well, first, as to choice, it's interesting. So many calls have come in on that issue, and that's not even an issue that you brought up. And I think it illustrates just how potent this issue is with people. It's interesting to see Donald Trump, on the one hand, claim responsibility or credit for the Dobbs decision, and on the other hand, try to do everything possible to say that he's against, to back away from the abortion issue. I think it was a huge issue in the 2022 elections, will be a huge issue in 2024. It starts with as to the economic issue, that starts with a trade imbalance. If we ship our dollars out of the country because we're buying everything, those dollars come back. They come back when they buy stock in American companies, and they have partial control of American companies. They come back when they buy American assets. It comes back when they make loans to American companies or to the United States government. And it's very hard to say, we're going to bring in all this stuff and you're going to get dollars, but we prohibit you from doing anything with those dollars. Those dollars are going to find them, hopefully will be used to buy American products, but we export so much less than we import that instead it comes back as we owe them money, or they own our companies, or they own our land.
We'll go to Rob, Noblesville, Indiana, Republican. Rob, make it quick, please. The House is gaveling in early this morning.
Yes, ma'am. Let me tell you, Representative Sherman, I would never have voted for you had I lived in California, maybe until this morning. Because when you came on, I'm looking at your screen, and it says you're from Foreign Affairs, and you were talking about India. Then you said you were a CPA, and you were talking about taxes and the economy. And that's a lot different than the former representative from California who was on infrastructure and came in talking about transgenders and gay conversion. And let me speak for a whole lot of Republicans when we say we don't care about those issues. We're all broke. The economy is terrible. We got no infrastructure, and we're talking about 5 kids.
Okay, Rob, I'm going to jump in. I think we understood the point of it, that we don't care about those issues. They want you, members of Congress, that is, working on the economy and other issues.
I don't think the gentleman lives in my district, but he sounds like a lot of my constituents.
Real quickly on appropriations, the debt deal that the president agreed to, do you trust Republicans on it?
It's clear they want a second bite at the apple. We've agreed on spending levels, and now they want to change the spending levels. We'll see if they're successful at that.
All right. Congressman Brad Sherman, we always appreciate the conversation with you, sir. Thank you.
Good to be with you.